Merry Christmas, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Jeremy Blair.
And I'm Rain Wayland. So, buddy, as we were talking about at work, because you're back at work now.
I am back at work, yeah.
Over the weekend, I had like a Sonic marathon.
Yeah. It's a lot of Sonic, man.
So, look, I'm going to be real. I really enjoyed the first Sonic movie. I didn't think I was going to, especially after, I don't think any of us will ever forget the original design of Ugly Sonic.
Ugly Sonic.
Especially considering Akiva Schaffer and Rescue Rangers won't let us forget it. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then I saw the second one, and I was like, damn, the second one's even better. And I've been really excited to see the third one. Ashley doesn't want to see the third one. But yeah, over the weekend I was just like, you know what, like, since I'm probably not going to get to see the third one before it leaves theaters, I'll just rewatch everything else. And I hadn't seen the Knuckles show, which was pretty good. I mean, thankfully Jeff Fowler, the director of the movies, and he was involved with the Knuckles show. Cool. They weren't doing like a Marvel thing where like the show directly like connects to the next thing. Like they make references obviously to the second movie and the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I was looking it up, and apparently they only make like one line of dialogue to the show in the third movie. I think it was really supposed to be sort of like a solo adventure.
Sure. That makes sense. I'm a huge fan of Adam Pally, and I always will be.
Dude, he's got so many great moments in the Knuckles show.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
I can't think of the actor's name, but Rizzo from Grease plays his mom, and her character's supposed to be like very Jewish.
Wait,
and so
Stockard Channing?
Yeah.
No way. That's cool.
Yeah. And every time when he introduces her to Knuckles, she keeps pronouncing it as Knuckles. With an H, so Knuchles. Knuckles, yeah. And he's like, Mom, it's Knuckles. She's like, that's what I'm saying, Knuckles. And then like, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I did read one negative review about the show because the show was really well received too, but a lot of people felt like they didn't focus really on Knuckles that much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like there's one whole episode about Wade Adams' character kind of finding himself.
I see.
And Knuckles is barely in it, but I mean, it's still good. Supposedly Idris Elba like ad-libbed 90% of his lines for the show.
That's fun.
So yeah, look, I'm not saying you should watch it, but I'm saying I think you'll have a fun time.
I saw the first one around the time it came out. It was when it hit streaming. I had the stomach flu, and I was desperate for any sort of distraction. I mean, I was in so much discomfort. And I remember I watched Logan Lucky. I remember that, and I was like, I'd seen it before. I was like, oh, that was good, but it's not good enough. I need something. And I would go, Sonic, fine. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, I was surprised of how much I liked it. I think it's just a combination of, Ben Schwartz. I'm a huge fan of his. It wasn't super serious. It didn't, it was fun and silly, and, it distracted me for sure, which is good.
Well, and apparently the third one's just destroying the box office right now.
Which is good, because, Keanu, our boy, he's in it.
Our precious baby boy. I saw an interview with him and Idris Elba during the press junket, and Idris goes, he's like, how cool do you have to be that you get referenced in the first movie and then you get a part in the third one? Because Keanu gets referenced in the first movie.
Because Sonic loves the movie Speed.
Yeah, and calls Keanu a national treasure.
That's right.
Which he is. And
people forget. Myself included. I won't say that I wasn't involved in this. People really used to not like Keanu Reeves. I was part of that. I did not like Keanu Reeves for the longest time.
Do you think it was that like that awkward point between the Matrix at the time trilogy coming to a close and Keanu not making a lot of good acting choices before he landed John Wick?
For me, it was I didn't see the range. I
Mm.
saw I mean, but that's not even true. I was just so naive, right? And I was hating because they hate us because they ain't us. I wasn't, you know. It from Keanu's perspective, I ain't us, you know. So
Yeah.
I was hating, and because like fucking Constantine's good, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
So I saw that for the like truly for the first time like a couple of years ago, and I was like, all right, it's pretty good.
yeah, no, it's good, and he's great in it, and I was just hating for no reason, and it would, it might have been a little bit of Dracula, you know.
I so I quoted that movie the other day, and Ashley goes, "What are you quoting?" And I'm like, "I'm quoting Bram Stoker's Dracula." And she was like, "Is that the one with Gary Oldman and I was like, in Keanu Reeves' bad accent?" Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
it's bad.
yes, it is.
So it might have been a little
Um,
bit of that. It could have been, like I don't know, but yeah, and this is how ingrained. We'll get to the movie in a minute. This is how ingrained the hatred was in our culture. Is when John Wick came out. Okay,
uh-huh,
obviously I didn't see it in the theater, or whatever. And I remember I was watching an episode of Tosh Point oh. Okay,
uh-huh.
and at the end of the episode, Daniel Tosh is talking about how good John Wick is, and the audience and myself went, ugh. And Daniel Tosh was like, "Have you seen it?" And he's like, "Then I don't want to hear it. Then shut up." And then my dad bought it at Best Buy. That's a old fashioned sentence. Um, we were at Best Buy. We were browsing. This is back when he used to buy movies. He doesn't do that anymore. But he goes, "Oh, let's buy this," and I was kind of like, I don't know, man. Come on, you know, it's gonna be some weird dumb dad movie, like Escape Plan or or some Steven Seagal bullshit, and and he fucking puts it on, and it blew our minds. So
I mean, yeah.
it goes
Now,
to
now we've
show,
got
like,
full.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it
Well,
completely changes his career. But
same. My mom thought the same thing. She was like, "Ugh, Keanu," and I. This was after I finally broke down and watched John Wick,
yeah,
and I was like, "Trust me, you need to see these movies." And yeah, now she loves them. She actually has the tie-in comics. Um,
cool.
Ashley and I saw the trailer for Ballerina, and Ashley was like, she was like, "Wait, this is happening within?" I was like, "Yeah, this is happening between 2 and 3, I think."
Or it's 3 and 4
Um,
or something.
oh yeah, I think it's three and
3 and 4. Yeah.
Um,
I haven't seen a trailer, but I'm
it
excited for
looks good.
Ballerina. I mean, I'll say it because I thought she was phenomenal in. Was it No Time to Die? Was she in that
Yeah,
one? Yeah, she
yeah,
was great in that.
yeah.
For
We went
that,
and saw that.
that's right. For that 5 minutes she was in it.
Yeah.
Um,
One final thing I want to say on Keanu, and then we'll move on to the movie. So when the news broke that for Sonic 3 they were going to have Shadow, I remember seeing a post that a lot of people wanted Hayden Christensen as
huh.
Shadow, and I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah. So yeah, he could nail dark and brooding and this sort of like tortured character. And then the news broke that it was Keanu, and I was like, even better. Like, let's go. Um, I don't remember what movie it was that Ashley and I went and saw, and they played the Sonic 3 trailer, and the first line that they have Shadow say for the trailer is You're a colorful bunch." And Ashley goes, "I know that voice." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, it's fucking Keanu."
It's fucking John Wick. Relax. It's fucking
And
Johnny
she was
Utah. Shut
and she
up.
was like, "Oh my god." Yeah. But she still doesn't see the movie. So, yeah.
Win some, you lose some.
Yeah. Well, with that being said,
Right.
so So, Jeremy, would you like me to remind everyone what we're talking about today?
Please.
Okay. If you sat through all that, thank you. And because you've probably forgotten that Jeremy said at the top of the show, yes, Merry Christmas. This episode is coming out. The audio is coming out relative to this recording tomorrow on Christmas Eve, and then the video will come out on Christmas. So, Merry Christmas, everyone. I hope you had a good one. I'm not going to say if you had a good one, Jeremy, because I'm not a time traveler.
I don't know.
But with that being said, I decided to shoehorn in a Christmas episode because we kind of did that for a Halloween episode with Over the Garden Wall. But instead of picking a movie that we couldn't add any substance, like the Santa Claus, which don't get me wrong, I still love the Santa Claus. It was just a very hard movie to talk about because there's really not much to talk about besides
just quoting it to each other and just be like, what wasn't that something,
yeah. So I decided to go with a movie that I felt like not only that I knew you would enjoy, but I was like, this movie has a lot of layers, and I feel like we could have a legitimate conversation about it. So that being said, we are discussing the 2019 animated film Klaus. And my first question to you, buddy, is because I know I asked you when I texted you, but I want to hear it on camera. Did you enjoy the movie?
I did enjoy the movie. Yes. It was fun. It was cute. It made me laugh. In several places, especially the little girl who's shoving the carrots into the snowman very ever so slowly, and menacingly. I loved that. That was very funny. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the sort of, I like the retelling, right? I like the sort of thing. It's fun, and we get to be creative in the inception of tradition and the inception of ideas and of process and things like that, of how things or how people explain what they believe, or try to come up with scenarios to explain their faith in a certain unbelievable thing. It was very cool, and I did really much enjoy it.
Yeah. It was a couple of years ago, and Ashley and I, it was definitely during December, and we were trying to find a Christmas movie, and we were on Netflix, and this one came up, and I'm like, I've never heard of this movie. And we watched the trailer, and I knew almost immediately Jason Schwartzman's voice because I know his voice just so well. I was like, okay, Jason Schwartzman's involved, and we saw the trailer, and we're like, this looks cute. Like, when I looked over at Ashley, she's like, "Do you want to watch it?" She's like, "Yeah," and yeah, we fell in love with it. It made it onto our annual list of Christmas movies to watch, and it makes Ashley cry. She didn't watch it with me this time. She was in the zone on her gaming, so she didn't watch it with me. But had she, it probably would have made her cry.
Sure.
But with that being said, everyone, so what is the movie Klaus? So Klaus follows Jesper Johansson, a very wealthy, pompous, entitled, spoiled man-child, really. His dad is Postmaster General of all mail in I guess Sweden, because with a name like Jesper Johansson, I guess it would be Sweden. Anyway, but as a way to teach Jesper a lesson, he sends him to a town called Smearensburg to establish a working post office because they don't have one there. And as it's revealed, they've had several postmen go out there, and it just never works out. But he gives Jesper an ultimatum where you have to do it within a year, or you're cut off. You're done. So Jesper has a goal to want to create a working post office in this town, but the problem is this town, everyone in this town hates one another. There are two rival families in this town, and we're not going to get into the semantics of inbreeding or anything like that. But the Ellingbows and the Crumbs deeply despise one another. And so, of course, they're not going to send letters. So Jesper, very desperate, learns about a woodsman who, again, Jesper kind of doing some snooping, sees that he's got this huge barn full of toys. And the two kind of enact a plan to, well, I say the two. Jesper comes up with a plan where it's like, hey, woodsman, his name is Klaus. That's the name of the movie. Hey, you give the kids toys. Hey, kids, you give me letters and you get a toy. And, and we start to see, as you said just a second ago, these sort of traditions of how Santa Claus came to be, which is, you write a letter. And, we start to hear how some of the other things come in, like, oh, if you leave out cookies, he'll eat the cookies. No one sees him because it's at the dead of night. But just because it's more practical for Jesper and Klaus to do this.
Right.
And during all this, Jesper is sort of unwittingly involving the town teacher, Miss Alva, who's trying to get out of this town. And it kind of, this plan re-sparks her love of wanting to teach. And ultimately, they are able to overcome this sort of hatred of one another and build a post office. The kids start to appreciate things. I'm yada-yadaing over a lot of stuff because there's a lot. Like, again, this movie's got a lot of layers to it. And then it kind of leaves off as the rest becomes history. Klaus becomes Santa Claus, and this is just the story of the postman that helped him get there. And that's Klaus in a nutshell. So with that being said, buddy, I feel like the best way to start with this movie, because I was really thinking about it today, and in a good way, this movie has a lot of Christmas movie tropes, which is, you have sort of your main character is sort of unlikable.
Yeah.
And he comes up with a very unlikable plan, a very selfish plan to get what he wants. And then as the movie progresses, he becomes less selfish and more selfless. And then that's all undermined by the true villains of the movie. But then our hero overcomes that, and it's got a lot of those tropes, but I feel like it does it in such a very digestible way, and in a way that becomes kind of feels very fresh, I
agree. I like the approach of this. It's almost okay. So this film sort of does this thing that I really enjoy, which is an outsider comes into a new space and becomes a part of that new space, right?
Mm-hmm.
I normally like it more when the new space is more inviting. Think of let's say like The Way Back is a great example. I don't know if you've seen The Way Back. It's absolutely incredible.
With Ben Affleck?
No.
Oh no, that's continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this kid starts working in a water park, and they are very inviting. They welcome him in. They show him the ropes, the traditions, the camaraderie is there immediately, right? Adventureland, that's another one that I really enjoy. It's sort of the same vibes.
With Edward Norton, The Way Back. Yeah.
Almost Famous is another one where
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, where he comes into this music scene and everyone's very inviting and very welcoming, and they're taking him under their wing, and I really enjoy stuff like that. Um, Stephen King also has a book called Joyland. That's the same. Um, this is sort of they're reluctant to have him there, right? So he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
want to be there. They don't want him there, right? But they end up sort of settling, and he becomes a part of the space, right? He
Mm-hmm.
and I like that. I like that trope. But what's interesting about this one is that through getting the children, the younger generation of this town, they start to intermingle. They start to befriend people of the other family. Um, and they start to sort of fix up the town. They start to not be involved in all of the fighting and all of the bickering and the whatever. Um, and that in turn sort of also from the younger generation changes the town for the better, except for the patriarch and matriarch of each respective family. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because you see the influence from the kids to some of the adults in the town, where they see that they're really pleasant and happy and having a good time, and the toys are a big part of that, of spreading joy, and
Mm-hmm.
them helping out with the adults and all that, blah blah blah. I enjoyed that aspect of it. I liked that from the younger generation, it affected the older generations to improve the town and the morality um, of the town. Right.
Yeah.
Um, I also liked that Santa's basically Aragon when you first meet him,
Yeah.
which I thought was cool. Um, and of course, he's not Santa in this movie. Um, but no, I liked the also just the slow progression of what we would come now to know as Santa, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the with the gift giving, with the chimney, with the cookies, with the list. Um, I like that. I like that. It was a slow progression. It wasn't an immediate like, oh, we should just do this, right? It was, um, obviously Klaus can't get in these houses because he's gigantic. Um, and so Jesper has to do it. I like that. Um, I like that the kids were mean to him. He would not give them anything but coal in their stockings. Um, it's fun stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, we're getting a retelling of these traditions and um, of these sort of Christmas icons in these
Mm-hmm.
archetypes and these yeah. I didn't want to say traditions again, but I can't think of another word.
Well, and and it's funny is all this stuff kind of stems again, like I said a second ago, of Jesper's selfishness at the beginning of the movie.
Yep.
All this stuff happens because he is selfish.
Yeah.
But his selfishness is what starts to change for the better, like you said. Offering these kids, if you write a letter to Mr. Klaus, he'll get you a toy, and that'll get his goal of getting 6,000 letters,
Right.
so he can get the fuck out of there.
That's right.
Because you're right, he is having to rely on the kids, the younger generation, because the adults aren't going to listen. And then, and again, like, that kid who called him a loser, he's like, well, no, you get coal, and then comes up with the naughty list when
Right.
he's like, and also Santa being omnipotent.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But again, a lot of these things come from Jesper's selfishness. But again, it's just really funny that the kind of the core theme of the movie, which is one selfless act always sparks another. And it took Jesper's selfishness to spark all these good deeds and good acts
Of course.
to start changing this town. Which again, I mean, is a trope in and of itself, especially for a Christmas film. But I think again, there's just something so refreshing about seeing it like this.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah, I mean, I like that, you know, it didn't seem like they were trying to, you know, of course we know because we have the burden of just knowing of what we do, you know, during Christmas time, and the legend and the lore, if you will, of Santa. Um and so, but it didn't feel like to me they were just checking off boxes um like he's like, oh, and we need a list. He's like, that just came organically, right? These, you know,
Yeah.
him wanting to teach that kid a lesson came organically.
Right.
I think the most interesting thing that I liked was the Sami people coming in and assisting with the workshop, which I guess would be the elves.
Well, no, I had the same thought when the first time we saw it. We were like, "So, are we? Is this how they're explaining how Santa gets his
Well,
elves?"
because and again, it's, you know, this isn't so far out of the realms of reality necessarily, so obviously they wouldn't be elves, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So, how can we still explain that and make it make sense, and have it to where it's not so fantastical? And I think that that was sort of a realistic progression of the story, which is they helped out this little girl. The little girl's going to want to repay them, and the
Mhm.
people saw how happy it made her, and they want to help, and they want to give people that same feeling, and so of course they would want to help. Now, um, I also liked that they're sort of symbolic in their costuming, because they're red and
Mhm.
blue, and Jesper is blue, and Klaus is red near the end. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I like that. Um, that design choice. Um,
So,
yeah.
while you think there for a second, I do want to change a statement that I said last week about this combination of hand drawn and CG animation
Mhm.
kind of combined. I was wrong. The film is entirely hand drawn, um, but they used a 3D lighting effect to give it a 3D feel. Um, because apparently Sergio, can't pronounce his last name, the
Yeah.
director,
Good luck.
he did not want to use CGI to animate the film. He
Mhm.
wanted it hand drawn. Um, and then I guess someone convinced him, like, well, hey, let's use this lighting effect that'll give it more of a 3D style, but it's still hand drawn. And he was like, on board, let's do that. And it's fantastic because, I mean, again, I thought it was both styles kind of intermingled into one.
Mhm. Well, I wonder if he did. There's some really interesting animation techniques that were used in like the 30s and 40s, where they would use hand drawn animation, and sometimes they would actually use physical. Not in this case, of course, but they would use physical 3D spaces, um, and like overlay them, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
animate
mm-hmm.
sort of that way. It's how you get some of like the Popeye cartoons, and some of those older cartoons, and it's really cool. And of course, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's really interesting that they used a different um, lighting technique. I'd wonder what that would be, um, or what that would look like. I wish these Netflix movies had special features. I could look.
Same. Well, and this is just sort of like a fun fact. I read today, apparently they shopped this movie around to a lot of different studios,
Mhm.
and a lot of them said it was too risky.
I wonder what that means.
I don't know, because I think the movie is not too risky at all. I guess maybe this
Ugh.
idea of retelling the Santa legend, but my thing is it's been retold time and time again.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, I mean, just the other day, I watched Santa Claus is Coming to Town on TV.
yeah,
I texted you about it because Burgermeister Meisterburger was on
but
TV, and I was like, I guess a dick. I gotta,
yeah, fuck that guy.
yeah. and um, and that's a retelling of Santa Claus,
Yeah.
and it's I feel like this is more of a okay. Let's say
Okay.
I'm gonna do some comparisons here.
Okay.
I'm gonna say the Rankin and Bass stop motion Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Let's call that like let's call we're gonna rest in peace real quick. All right, let's call that a Joel Schumacher real quick. Okay,
Okay.
all right. If we're gonna compare this to sort of adaptations of story and retellings, right? So we're gonna call this a
Okay.
Joel Schumacher. Okay,
Okay.
and we're gonna call Klaus either a Nolan or a Matt Reeves. Okay, because
Okay.
where a lot of these retellings, a lot of these legends and stories of Santa Claus are very fantastical. There's magic, there's the unexplainable, there's, it's a fantastical element, right?
Uh-huh.
This is more of a grounded, realistic story. I would say more of a Nolan then, because it's not real enough for it to be a Matt Reeves. So let's leave that alone. But it's this sort of more of a realistic retelling of this legend that if you're a kid watching it, I don't know, because I mean I know Zach's daughter loves this movie. They've seen it several times already this year.
Really?
And oh yeah,
Dude, shout out to Zach. Zach's the best dad.
yeah, agreed. And so it's like I don't even think that it would be like perhaps the studios were sort of like it's too risky. It's kind of saying there's no such thing. It's kind of saying that
I mean,
with this sort of more grounded approach that it's sort of taking the magic out of it. And I mean I disagree with this hypothetical thing I just made up because or these hypothetical statements that these people didn't make
yeah.
because the magic is in sort of the spirit and the giving and the gratitude of Christmas. It's this is what giving does, right? This is what this is what bringing joy to other people can do to a community. This is what it looks like to share happiness and to provide a sort of levity and just joy to other people. And that's what Christmas is, really.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it takes the magic out necessarily. This is more of a sort of meaning of Christmas sort of a movie,
I'm gonna make a really bad comparison.
All right. I just compared these to Batman, so
well,
you're in good company.
Well, okay. I'm gonna take an element from another Christmas movie. I love this movie dearly, and everything we've been talking about. I definitely feel like they took the line from Fred Claus and ran with it, which is the line is kids don't matter, like not kids don't matter. Kids don't care what they're getting for Christmas as long as they get something just to know someone's thinking of them.
Oh, okay.
It's like they took that line and they're like, let's triple down on this
Yeah.
and turn it into a whole story. Because you're right, because you know, especially towards the middle half of the movie, it becomes sort of like, especially when Jesper, still being very selfish, is pitching this idea of, oh, we could do this on Christmas. He pitches it as bringing joy to these kids' lives, because again, everything Jesper has seen is these kids aren't happy. And I think that's kind of what the core is too of the movie, is that it doesn't matter what they get. It just matters that they get something,
Well, and kindness begets kindness. So,
Yeah.
like when they're showing kindness to the children of this town, the children therefore not repurpose. They pay it forward. Basically,
Yeah.
they bring that kindness to other people, right? So, like, one of the adults played the clarinet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then they fix up his clarinet, right? And they're fixing up the town. They're taking out all the weapons. Which again, that's a little it's silly, right? And it's a little absurd, which is why it's more of a Nolan than a Matt Reeves.
Well, one of my favorite scenes when the kids are sort of like revitalizing the town is when they have like a stop sign, and
oh yeah,
those adults are like careening down the hill in a bathtub, and the kids like stop him, and then the lady's like dragging the body, or just kind of like,
so good. That made me laugh out loud. The dragging the body was crazy.
But yeah, no, yeah, you're right that the kids, exactly like you said, that the kids are paying it forward, which is then affecting their parents, cousins, aunts.
Right. Yeah, and even like the what I was going to think was going to be who was going to be one of the main antagonists was that grouchy old man with the top hat and the shotgun
And the gun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be one of the main antagonists, but yet the children sort of turn him around, and they, the adults are seeing that, oh, this isn't as bad as we thought it was going to be. This Hatfields and McCoy situation. I don't know another. Oh, it's West Side Story. So the Sharks and the Jets situation, it's not so bad to to be kind to one another and to spend time with the other. And he was one of the ones that was completely turned around, and I was shocked by that, and it just turned out to just be the main two, Will Sasso and
Joan Cusack.
That's right.
Yeah. I love before we move on for this, I love the reveal that the Crumbs have never defeated the Ellingbows. When she's like, it looks like someone, with her like hand wringing, it's like someone needs help delivering their letters. And he's like, yeah. Who? And she's like, what? Like, how have we never defeated you? I thought that was really funny.
That is funny.
That they've been at war for so long and the Crumbs never win.
Yeah.
Which probably explains why they're so angry. But my segue was the voice cast. I could talk for like a million hours of the voice cast that they were able to pull off. Again, with Jason Schwartzman, I think people really what's the right word? Underestimate his leading man power. I think he can be like, well, I know he can be a really good leading man.
Sure.
And this is another movie that really proves it, that he can be sort of the main character and really like lead this plot forward.
Well, I got to tell you, man, at the beginning of this movie, I'm like, oh, I don't know how much I can take at this. Because he's just so unlikable. I did not like him at all.
Yeah.
And he sort of reminded me of his characters in Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, yeah.
In the Darjeeling Limited, I thought he was a lot like that as well. and I'm like, ugh, he's too scummy, you know. Um,
Sidebar: I'd like to just point out that Jeremy made a
I
Wes
did,
Anderson
I
reference.
did.
I, I'm like a proud dad over here.
Yeah, it's
Um,
one I've seen, so and one I didn't mind.
um, but yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, because I think Jason is so good at playing the sort of whiny brat, really. Um, but I think what also he's really good at is the 180
Mhm,
when Jesper starts to soften up and realize that he's more than what he thinks he deserves.
mhm.
Um, I think his 180, as we've had this discussion before, I think his 180 is more well deserved than Scrooge's 180.
Sure, agreed.
Because Jesper really sees how selflessness can benefit him more than selfishness,
Mhm,
and what things, his silk sheets, his butler.
right.
If he's selfless, he can get that. He essentially will feel fulfilled. Those things don't make him feel actually fulfilled.
Right.
Um, but and again, that's something I think Jason is so good at. I'm going to make a Wes Anderson reference now. Having finally watched Rushmore, he sort of has that same 180 of being the sort of whiny, bratty guy, and then towards the end of the movie, he starts to 180
Mhm.
and grow as a character. And I think Jason's just so fantastic at that.
Yeah.
Um, and then we got our boy J.K. Simmons as Klaus.
Yeah, I think that if you don't really follow J.K. Simmons' career, I think this might, or if you just know him from Whiplash um, or as J. Jonah Jameson, maybe you're sort of like, this is,
Uh-huh.
he's doing a sweet movie. He's doing a cute, sweet movie. But I have an anecdote. I'm sure I've told it on the show before, so I apologize.
That's all right.
Not that people fucking listen to this thing. It doesn't matter. So Billy West. I'm a huge fan of Billy West. Most people probably would recognize his voice as Fry, Philip J. Fry from Futurama. Billy West is sitting down with his wife, and his wife is like, "Hey, have you watched the show called Oz?" And he was like, "No, I haven't watched the show." And back then, this is like late 90s, so it's like 96, 97. And Billy West is the voice of the Red M&M as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of his main gig, I guess. And it's definitely the one giving him his most income because I'm sure that commercial's on all the time.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "No, I haven't seen it." And he goes, "Man, there is this guy on there. He is absolutely terrifying. He's the neo-Nazi, and he's diabolical and sadistic, and he is truly scary." And he goes, "Oh, okay, well, let's take a look." And they're watching the show, and it's J.K. Simmons
Uh-huh.
is his character. He goes, "J.K.? Like, I work with him. He's the yellow M&M." And he's like, "That's my buddy. I know him." And so, like, those of you who who don't know that he's been doing voice work forever. He still is the yellow M&M.
Yeah.
So, which I think is very funny because I can't. Every time I see him in anything, which is very frequently, most recently, which is great because I love J.K. Simmons. I can't picture him. I always picture him like, I know he's an actor, obviously, because he's acting in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, he just seems too like he seems too serious for the silliness of acting. Does that make sense?
I think the best example of what you just gave is his guest appearance in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. His character is supposed to be so serious, and then when it's revealed that he's been like fired from his old job as a cop, that he's working at a craft store, it all kind of crumbles down. And I think that like sums up J.K. Simmons perfectly.
And I know, and again, it's probably just like from some of his recent acting gigs. He's just so good. Because I know
Yeah.
he's silly because I've seen Juno, I've seen Extract, and like I know he's silly, but it just seems, I don't know. I'm just in awe of his talent. I'm such a huge fan of J.K. Simmons, and it seemed to me like he only did like 2 days of of voice work for this.
We should
Max.
point out, everyone, if you decide to watch this movie, Klaus doesn't have a lot of speaking lines.
Yeah.
He doesn't really open up till like midpoint of the movie, and by then we only have like 45 minutes left.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, J.K. brings a great performance, and we should go ahead and point out, this was the first time he played Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Before Red One.
I have not seen. So
Mom went and saw it the other day. She said it was fine.
sure.
Her highlight was pretty much J.K. Simmons. She said some of the jokes are pretty good, but she was like, "Yeah, it was fine."
I live in a Chris Evans household, so we'll see it eventually.
Yeah. And then moving on to Rashida Jones as Miss Alva.
She's great.
Dude, did you know? I'm sure you did know this, because let's be honest, sometimes you know more than I do. Did you know her dad was Quincy Jones?
Yeah.
Dude, insane. R.I.P. Quincy
R.I.P.
Jones.
Quincy Jones. Yes, that's a recent one. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know until I saw her like post about him, and I was like, oh my god, it makes so much sense now. But I think Rashida Jones is fantastic, and I think she's also, just like Jason Schwartzman, really good at playing these characters who we're seeing at a low point, and then they kind of revive themselves as the movie goes on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there are moments with her that made me laugh, which is when she's finally opened up the school again, and it's a full school now, right? She's not doing fishmongering anymore. I like that she was still teaching math with fish on the chalkboard. That made me laugh because she still can't let it go.
Yeah.
That made me laugh. That was good.
Yeah, I really and I love her comedic timing. Like when you feel like she's threatening, when Jesper meets her for the first time, and you feel like she's threatening him with the knife, and then she uses it to hold up the herring. She's like, herring's half off right now. And then the fish's jaw drops. Like, it's so good. And then of course we wouldn't be remiss if we didn't discuss R.I.P. Norm Macdonald as the boat guy. His final role, I should say.
His final theatrical performance. Yeah, man, Norm Macdonald is probably one of the funniest people to ever live. If you haven't seen it, I recommend going on YouTube or wherever and looking up his run of O.J. Simpson material on Saturday Night Live, because he just wouldn't let it go, and like he got in a lot of trouble.
Wasn't he fired?
Eventually, he was fired for messing up. Yeah. But his jokes on Weekend Update were always just knockouts. They're so funny, and it's he's the best. But I definitely recommend looking up just his run of OJ material, because it's just weeks and weeks and weeks of this, and it is just so funny. Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, of course, Jeremy just said look it up, but I'm just gonna mention it. The reason why he got so much trouble is because wasn't like one of the executives like friends with OJ?
I don't know, because like I don't really know the whole backstory of why he got fired, but I just know that they told him to sort of like back off and let it go, and Norm Macdonald's like, well, I'm just going to triple down, because not even double down, I'm going to triple down, I'm going to keep going, and even harder, because he despised O.J. Simpson and truly thought that he's a murderer, and he was, or his son is. Either way, either way, OJ's a bad guy, and Norm despised him, and so did
Yeah.
the writers. It's glorious to see. You gotta check it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, and I love that they kind of let Norm be Norm as this character. You
Yeah,
know, like his whole like when Jesper's leaving and he's like, "Huh, I've never seen that before." And Jesper's dad is like, "Never seen what?" And he goes, "Never seen a postman look so miserable than he did when he arrived." Oh well, I'm sure it's nothing that will lead to resentment and regret. It's just very Norm, and I feel like they just kind of let him be Norm Macdonald, like
I agree. I don't know. It's nice that he was in it. Again, a huge fan. Um, and it was nice he was in this movie. I don't know. I love Norm Macdonald. So yeah.
yeah. Well, and one more thing I want to add about the voice cast is speaking of uh, the directors and everyone letting Norm Macdonald be Norm Macdonald. I did read today that Jason Schwartzman, the director, Sergio, said that he's pretty sure Jason only said about 40% of the scripted lines.
Yeah.
Everything else was improv.
Oh, it's fun. It's sort of interesting to think about improving an animated film, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's sort of because they wouldn't have it pre-animated, so
Right.
especially with the mouth movements and all of that, that needs to come after they're done. So it makes sense.
Well, to bring that full circle, I was watching something with Ben Schwartz in it, and he was talking about how in now every Sonic movie he's tried to work in the catchphrase "Hachi Machi," and he's like, and I've done multiple takes, I've seen them, and he was asked like, well, did any of them make it into the movie? And he was like, no, none of them made it.
Yeah, again, like being able to, which again, like now that I'm saying it out loud, like it would, of course, because Robin Williams is the genie. Like he only, they just let him do whatever he wanted, basically.
Yeah.
So of course that makes sense. Jer, idiot.
Well, and also, it explains how the genie somehow can transcend
That's right.
space and time and know who Jack Nicholson is.
Yeah, Peter Lorre and all that. Yeah, kids love Peter Lorre. I know.
Yeah. But yeah, all that to say, man, again, like I said last week, they knocked it out of the park with the voice acting, with the cast, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about again with The Wind Rises. Actually, no, it doesn't. Disregard I just said that, because
that's funny.
that's a different type of animation. Voice actors are better for those anyway.
Right.
Disregard I just said that. Even Will Sasso and Joan Cusack. I also learned that the director voices the two giant kids of
Really?
each. Yeah, he voices. Apparently, that kid's name is Bruno, and then of course Will Sasso's daughter is Pumpkin.
Yeah,
And
Haley sort of watched sort of the tail end of the movie, and she was like, "Oh, so it's like Romeo and Juliet." I go, "I guess this part is,"
but without the murder suicide.
Without the murder suicide. That's right. Yeah,
because they get married, which again is the funniest twist ever. That these families have been fighting each other for years, and then their kids just got married.
Well, and it goes back to sort of the younger generation sort of breaking the cycle. It's when Joan Cusack is explaining. By the way, Joan Cusack, holy shit, I love her. Right.
So do I.
She's the best. Since we've talked about the other ones, if you haven't seen In and Out with Kevin Kline and Joan Cusack, please do immediately. And Addams Family Values. Those are great Joan Cusack performances. Anyway, so when she's explaining the lineage of the hate, and how far back it goes, it does drive home the point that the movie is trying to make, that just a little bit of kindness can change the trajectory of your life, right? And of people's lives around you. And I like that it's showing that, kindness can truly break the cycle of hate and of grudges and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So I mentioned it last week. This movie has a couple of, in my opinion, a couple of gut punches. One of them is that the reveal that his wife is dead. And the other one for me, I'm gonna be honest, bro, I do tear up every time, is the end of the movie.
Yeah.
When Jesper is still narrating the movie, and he talks about how, like, essentially, like, we all know what happened after that. But I just love this whole, like, once a year I get to see my friend. Essentially saying that, like, Klaus becoming a saint,
Mhm.
still now Jesper still gets to see his friend, and I'm like, that's so sweet, and
Well,
that's
because he
so
gets to
just
see his influence, right? He gets to see Klaus's influence in the traditions that people are now taking part in. He gets to see what Klaus's actions and kindness and his yeah just his life changing so many others and it being so ingrained in culture. And I think that's what he meant by that he meant that I get to see my friend every year, meaning I get to see the influence he's made, the impact he's made.
I didn't read it like that. I read it as he literally gets to see Klaus every year.
Okay, that's
Well, because he stays up and waits for him, and he even says, I stopped making sense of it a long time ago.
I guess you're right. I guess that's true.
That he doesn't know how Klaus became a saint, which, of course, I would say that Jesper's the one who kind of helped him on this trajectory to sainthood.
I kind of saw him walking into the woods, into the bright light. I sort of saw that. Here's another Lord of the Rings reference for you. I sort of saw it as Frodo and Bilbo getting on the ship or the boat with the elves. Like that's how I saw it.
To go to the Undying Lands.
That's right. That's what I thought he was doing.
No, but again, I mean, it makes sense, because Jesper does say, like, it's like he just vanished.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, something about the ending, man. Something about Jesper just being like, every year I get to see my friend, and I'm just like,
it's how I feel at the very end of Shawshank when Red is saying he's going through his hopes, right? There's a few moments in this final monologue that really get me. One of them is, I hope the Pacific is as blue as it is in my dreams, and I hope I get to see my friend again and shake his hand. Those, I'm like, oh, I got chills just now, just thinking about, and I see what you mean, right?
Yeah. Well, and again, like what I've just been saying, like actually gushing over, of Jason's voice acting and just the tenderness in the voice, and then, of course, mixed with the animation of Jesper, fixing the garland on the Christmas tree and getting fresh cookies and milk out.
Yeah.
And 2 glasses for him and Klaus to,
right.
Just sit and it's so good, man. So good.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great movie. I really did enjoy it. Yeah, Maya was there. She was asleep, I think, through most of that. Baby sleep a lot. Until you want to sleep, but that's fine. But no, this was a surprise. I had never heard of this movie before. Like most things on Netflix, if it's good, I'm not going to hear about it.
Yeah.
Netflix likes to bury the good stuff.
Yeah, which is interesting, especially because this movie, I think, was nominated for several Academy Awards.
Was it? It's really interesting.
Yeah, one being Best Animated Film.
That's so weird. I don't remember that at all, man. We
Neither
usually
do
pay
I.
attention to that stuff.
Yeah. I think maybe because since this movie came out in 2019, because this would have been the 2020 Oscars. And,
Oh,
the
know
2020 Oscars.
Well, let me think, because I remember that one. I'm trying to remember now, because the 2021 Oscars I felt, were weird because those were the COVID ones. I think that's when Nomadland won Best Picture. I'm like, that's so bizarre,
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, I don't remember the one before that.
Neither do I.
It doesn't matter.
Neither do I. Yeah, but no, I agree. The things that are sort of like these hidden gems within Netflix, tend to get buried.
They do, I think. That's why, I follow a lot of people that talk about movies on TikTok and things like that. So like they can, keep me up to date. I can, put stuff on my watch list from Letterboxd, and I can just, so I can save it for later. Because that's usually how I find stuff now. The ocean of content on Netflix is too vast now. Either you already know it's there, or they're just gonna, show you the folding laundry movies, that's like just like background noise.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
I am. Again, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed this retelling. I thought it was more grounded, more interesting in its messaging, of kindness begetting kindness, and showing it through the lens of what kindness can do to a town that's so divided. I liked that. It's a good movie, man. Good job.
Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed it. This will probably forever be a Christmas movie for Ashley and I to watch every year. I believe I didn't look through the list, but I believe it made it onto an IMDb list of like best Christmas movies to watch.
Cool.
But yeah, man, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did.
And again, I'm glad I wanted to pick a movie for the Christmas episode that actually we could add some context and have a good discussion about, instead of being like plain milk's fine.
Plain milk's fine. So good.
But that being said, buddy, so what are we going to talk about next week? I think well, no, I don't think it will be the first official episode of 2025. No, it'll be the last episode of 2024.
Look at that. Okay. Well, I'm picking sort of a kind of topical pick. Kind of. Also, I've deleted 2 movies from my list because I'm too excited for the end of season series that I have planned.
Oh, okay.
So you delete 2, because I deleted 2. But anyway, next week I find it only fair that we celebrate a film that accomplished something that a new film is trying to accomplish, that is coming out recently, or soon, or is maybe already out. I don't know. Anyway, in 2007, Todd Haynes directed a film depicting the life of Bob Dylan in several different ways, using several different actors, and it during different phases of Bob Dylan's career. And the characters aren't necessarily Bob Dylan. They are not called Bob Dylan, but they represent Bob Dylan. And that movie is I'm Not There. And so with James Mangold's Complete Unknown coming out, I think it's only fair that we talk about this one first.
Yeah, because Complete Unknown literally comes out when the video of this comes out. And so far, it's doing pretty good. It's doing pretty good. It's got a certified fresh 77% right now.
Oh, I'm sure it's gonna be good.
Um,
I'm gonna see it. I heard Timothy Chalamet worked 5 years on sort of getting this Bob Dylan persona right, and I heard the woman who plays Joan Baez is just incredible.
nice.
And so really excited to see it. But this one is more of an interesting take on a biographical movie.
Well, and I read that each actor kind of represents one aspect of Bob's personality.
Yeah, in a way, it's sort of like phases, and you're right, different personality types, and because I believe in the Complete Unknown, it's really going to focus on when Bob Dylan went electric, which
Mhm.
I know that sounds so silly to people who don't understand or don't care or don't get it. But Bob Dylan was so influential in the 60s with his folk music and with his acoustic sound, that when he decided to go electric and use an electric guitar, it was a huge deal because he was basically thumbing his nose at people that, truly cared about what he was doing in the folk scene. That he was like, no, 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 no. Like, don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what to be. I'm going to do this. And
yeah,
I mean, it blew people. People really didn't like it. And people thought that it was betraying, his identity, his music, his persona, all of that. And now we know that that's all bullshit. So
yeah. I've wanted to see this movie for a long time, man. But I just never got around to it, and mainly because I did feel like it was a little bit of a daunting task. Because, like I said,
sure.
The only thing I really read about the movie was that each actor kind of represented a different aspect of his personality, like Richard Gere and stuff like that.
Yeah, Kate Blanchett plays Jude. Amazing. Of course, it's Kate Blanchett, right?
Yeah,
incredible performance. Ben Whishaw is also in
our boy Paddington.
Yeah, he's in the movie. Christian Bale, Heath Ledger.
Nice.
I'm really excited. Chris Christopherson, who R.I.P., he just passed away as well. He narrates the film. Chris Christopherson, also an extremely influential singer-songwriter. I guarantee you've heard one of his songs before, even if you haven't heard him sing it. He wrote Me and Bobby McGee, which Janis Joplin made famous in 1968, 1969. But yeah, Chris Christopherson is one of the greatest songwriters.
Oh man, and it's Todd Hayes.
Yeah, it's Todd Hayes. Yeah.
Nice. Well, nice. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this episode on Klaus and had a very Merry Christmas. And we will see you next week for I'm Not There.